She rescued him first. That is the part the story always forgets to tell you. His name was Shadow, and before he became a hero, before the fire, before he saved her life in the middle of a Spokane wildfire in August 2026, he was a dog who had needed saving himself. He had been taken in by Best Friends Animal Society. He had been given a bed, a collar, a meal, and a second chance. He had been neutered, vaccinated, microchipped, cared for the way that rescue organizations care for animals who have nowhere else to go. He had been given the full weight of human attention and kindness, and he had accepted it. And then he went home with a woman named Donna Carberry. He was small, he was sweet, he had been given everything he had never had before by a woman who asked nothing in return except his company. The fire would change that.
She thought it had been a few hours. There was no way to know otherwise. Her phone had gone somewhere in the chaos and the smoke, and the world around her was noise and movement and strangers moving through a mass emergency that had taken the whole neighborhood at once. Time stopped making sense. Everything became the next moment, and then the next one. She sat with the cat and with Shadow. She was injured, she was shoeless, she had watched her barns burn and her house go up in the smoke behind her, and she had no way of knowing what had happened to her horses. Shadow did not leave. That is worth pausing on. A dog who had just survived a wildfire, who was in a strange place, surrounded by chaos and noise and smoke and the smell of everything burning. He sat beside her for 20 hours. He did not run. He did not try to find somewhere safer. He stayed where she was, because she was there. At 8 o'clock Sunday night, a woman who was evacuating her horses happened to come by and find her. That woman stopped. She took Donna and the cat and Shadow to an emergency shelter where Donna could finally be cared for. Donna Carberry lost her home in the Old Trails fire. She lost her pickup. She lost her horse trailer. She lost 2 of her horses, animals she had loved and cared for, who were part of her daily life in ways that do not translate easily into words. She lost those horses, and their absence is a grief that will not close quickly. What the fire left behind was a pile of ash and rubble where a house had been, a burned-out vehicle, a burned-out trailer, the bones of a life that had existed before Saturday noon. And Shadow. She said afterward, "I don't care about my stuff. I just care about him." Here is the part of the story that the headlines do not always stop to say. Shadow had been a rescue dog before any of this happened. Before he was Donna's dog, before he became her hero, he was a dog without a home. He had been taken in by Best Friends Animal Society. He had been given care, a collar, a bed, a microchip, vaccinations, neutering, all the things that a dog needs to go from uncertain to safe. He had been brought back from the edge of having nowhere to go. He had been rescued. And then he rescued her back. That is the loop that nobody plans for. That is the thing nobody writes on the adoption paperwork. When you bring home an animal who has been saved, you do not know yet what they will carry with them from that moment of being given a second chance. You do not know what that kindness will become, what it will look like 2 years later when the air turns orange and the barn catches fire. Shadow body slammed the door until a woman came to see what was wrong. He ran beside her when she had no shoes. He stayed with her for 20 hours on a road in the middle of a wildfire evacuation while she waited for someone to find them. Because when Donna took him in, when she gave him everything he had needed, safety, warmth, food, a name spoken with care, he paid attention to her. He watched her. He learned the weight of her presence. He knew her the way only a dog can know a person, with his whole body and his whole attention, all the time, always. And when the fire came, he used all of that to keep her alive. After the Old Trails fire, Donna was injured and could not care for Shadow the way he needed to be cared for. Best Friends stepped in again. The same organization that had taken him in before took him in again, temporarily, while Donna recovered. They gave him a bed, they gave him a collar, they gave him food and care and daily attention. They made sure he was okay while the woman he had saved tried to heal.
Donna stayed in close contact with the team at Best Friends throughout her recovery. She called, she checked in, she spoke with the people who were watching over Shadow the way some of them said they had never spoken with anyone before. Because the bond between Donna and Shadow was visible, even through a phone call. Some of those team members became her close friends. She told them, "By you taking care of him, you are taking care of me." She meant it as a literal truth. She knew the connection went both ways, that caring for Shadow was the same act as caring for her, because the two of them had become that intertwined. Shadow is expected to be reunited permanently with Donna when she has recovered from her injuries. When people asked her about her house, about the horses she had lost, about the rubble and the ash and the burned-out trailer that used to hold her life, she gave the same answer every time. "I don't care about my stuff. I just care about him." She also said this, clearly and directly, so there would be no confusion about what she believed. "This is my hero, Shadow. He literally saved my life." The Old Trails Fire was one of 3 wildfires in the Spokane area in August 2026. Dozens of families lost their homes. Hundreds of animals were displaced. Evacuation orders stretched across entire neighborhoods. It was the kind of disaster that levels things evenly. It does not care whose barn, whose house, whose horses. In the middle of all of that, one small dog kept throwing himself against a back door because the woman on the other side needed to know something urgent, and he had no other way to tell her. He had been given a second chance once. He used it to give her one. If you have ever adopted a rescue animal, you already understand something about what that means. You know the relationship runs in both directions, that what you give them when you open your home is not just shelter and warmth and food, but the possibility of becoming the kind of animal who can do something like this, who can sense what you cannot sense, who can act when you cannot act, who can stay when staying is everything. Shadow stayed. If this story moved you, subscribe. The next story we tell will be just as real, just as close, just as necessary as this one. These animals deserve to have their stories heard. Every single view helps us find the next one. Thank you for being here.